Hi everyone, my name is Dr. B. Mohammad Ali, Department of Chemistry, Savita Engineering College. Today we have to discuss the social issues and the environment, particularly for the water crisis and the remedial measures. The course outcome of this lecture: identify the social problems in the environment to reduce social issues. The learning outcome of this lecture: at the end of this lecture, students will be able to gain knowledge on water crisis and the remedial measures. So first of all, we have to know what is meant by water crisis. The water is one of the most precious resources on the planet. More than 1 billion people do not have access to a source of clean drinking water, and around 3 billion experience water scarcity at least 1 month per year. The water stress is a serious issue in many parts of the world. Discover its causes and effects, but most importantly, the solution to the water crisis. So the water crisis is nothing but the water conservation. The process of saving water for future utilization is called the water conservation. The conserving water is important because it keeps water pure and clean while protecting the environment. So why we need to the water conservation? The water conservation is given the better lifestyle require more fresh water. As the population increases, the requirement of the water is also more. Due to deforestation, the annual rainfall is also decreasing. The over exploitation of groundwater leads to drought. Finally, the agriculture and the industry require more fresh water. So, which can be causes the water crisis. So that's why we need for water conservation. So the strategy of the water conservation, the reducing evaporation losses, reducing irrigation losses, reuse of water, preventing wastage of water, decreasing runoff losses, finally the avoid discharge of sewages. The continuation of strategies of water conservation, we provide gratings at mouth of each drain pipes on terraces to trap leaves, terps and floating materials. Provision of first rain separator should be made to flush off first rains. Do not use polluted water to recharge groundwater. Finally, groundwater should only be recharged by rainwater. So these are all the strategies we have to go for the water conservation. The methods of the water conservation can be divided into two types. One is rainwater harvesting, that is RWH. The next one is watershed management, that is called WSM. So we have to go for one by one. The first one is objective of rainwater harvesting. To meet increasing demands of water, to reduce surface runoff loss, to minimize water crisis and water conflicts, to increase hydrostatic pressure to stop land subsidence, to reduce the groundwater contaminations, finally to raise the wastewater table. So these are all the objectives of rainwater harvesting. So the advantage of rainwater harvesting is nothing but the reduction in the use of current for pumping water, avoiding the effects of droughts, raise in groundwater levels, future generations assured for water, increasing the availability of water from well, minimizing the soil erosion and flood hazards. So these are all the importance. So that's why we have to use the rainwater harvesting. The next one is for watershed management. So first we have to know that what is meant by watershed management. The land area from which water drains under the influence of gravity into a stream, lake, reservoir or other body of surface water is called the watershed management. So the factors affecting watershed management: the watershed degraded, unplanned, uncontrolled, unscientific land use of activities, overgrazing, deforestation, mining and construction activities, finally the traffic climate. So these are all factors will be affect the watershed management. So why we need for the watershed management? To minimize the risk of floods, droughts and the landslides, to develop rural areas in the region with clear plan for improving the economy of the region, to manage the watershed for developmental activities like domestic water supply, irrigation and hydropower generation and etc. To protect the soil from erosion. Finally, to raise the groundwater level. So These are all the important. That's why we have to need for watershed management. So the watershed management techniques like trenches, earthen dam, stone embankment, farm barn, underground barrage techniques. So these are all the techniques we have to use for watershed management. So finally, the advantage. The watershed development program is a revolutionary program aimed at fulfilling the water needs in the water scarce areas. In areas where there is an inadequate water supply, watershed management offers an ideal solution. It helps in utilizing the primary source of water and prevents the runoff from going into sewer of storm drains, thereby reducing the load on treatment plants. If we take steps to encourage each drop of rainfall to the penetrate in the ground at the point where it strikes earth, it will be result in addition of one drop to our results water supply and the subtraction one drop from a potential flood. Finally, the conclusion. We hope that these tips help everyone to save water. We really need to save water and save it fast. Thank you for attending this lecture. Thank you.